Everyone likes some piece of media they're not super proud of. Whether you secretly go hard for the Kardashians or you can't stop thinking about Shia LaBeouf's calf muscles. Or you can't be trusted with the aux cord at parties because you really loved kazoo covers of 90s pop songs. I know you've got guilty pleasures and I want to know about them. Today, I've managed to con my pal Zoheb into spilling the beans. Zoheb and I used to work together at a cinema chain back in the day, and it may shock you to learn that people who work in cinema chains often really like movies. Like, a lot. Too much, maybe? Anyway, Zoheb has gone from yelling at me about Christopher Nolan films in between calls to hosting a whole podcast dedicated to yelling about Christopher Nolan films. No, I'm kidding. He hosts a great podcast called Midnight Double Feature, which features reviews and rants and strong opinions on everything from new releases to cult classics. So, what does a man who unashamedly watches everything at the box office feel guilty about enjoying? I'll give you a quick plot synopsis and you see if you can guess. This sci fi horror classic features a team of scientists searching for the cure for Alzheimer's in all the wrong places, specifically in shark brains. When it turns out they've accidentally created genius sharks, LL Cool J must pep talk them out of a watery grave and into the waiting arms of the Lord. Or a rescue boat. Did you get it? No? Well, I'm Alex.
I'm Zoheb.
This is Pop Culture Boner, the podcast edition, and today we're thinking about the 1999 film Deep Blue Sea. So we tossed up a couple of options for things that Zoheb could talk about. The first one was Godzilla, the 1998 version, which I did really want to talk about, but also I want to talk about at another point. So we instead went with Deep Blue Sea. Why Deep Blue Sea?
So Deep Blue Sea. Okay, when you asked me this question, I was like, oh man, I have so many choices to choose from because I love schlock.
Mm,
Like I mean, like you said, I like Christopher Nolan, I like Tarantino, I like all the critically acclaimed directors. But like when I picked this, I went by director, and my favorite schlocky director is Michael Bay. And I've talked about Michael Bay way too much on my own podcast, and I'm just like, I'm not going to talk about it on anyone else's because I'm burnt out. I'm burnt
he
out.
can't do it anymore.
No, I
There's
can't
only
do it
so
anymore.
much Michael Bay a man can do.
Oh, seriously, it's just explosions. And then I went down. Who else did I look at? I looked at Stephen Summers, who
Mm.
did The Mummy and G.I. Joe and
Both
Van
incredible
Helsing.
films. The Mummy, the
Amazing.
best franchise ever made.
Amazing,
Yeah,
amazing. But then I was like, yeah, I don't know. That doesn't feel right to me. And then I went to Roland Emmerich, Godzilla, Independence Day,
a classic. Both classics.
both classics. Let's not talk about 2012.
Let's not.
And then I went to Rennie Harlan, who is a weird director. Like he's done Nightmare on Elm Street 4. He's done Die Hard 2. He did Die Hard 2. Not the like yeah, but look, he's a strange director. He's of Finnish ancestry.
Mm,
He makes the most American movies ever.
yeah.
Like Cliffhanger
Yeah.
is so American, I feel like. It's just I don't know, like 12 Rounds with John Cena as well. Like he just comes up with these really weird like movies that are just so unique and somewhat fun to watch. Like
Mm.
this is like getting to Deep Blue Sea. This is a make no mistake, a terrible movie. A terrible movie, but just for me, just so fun to watch because the all of the cast members are trying. All
Yeah.
of the actors are giving 100%,
Doing their goddamn best.
doing their goddamn best. Samuel L. Jackson is in this movie, and yeah, we'll talk about it.
One of the things that you just said about him being a Finnish director, I thought was really interesting because there is something that I think is kind of wild about European directors interpreting American cinema, where they're like, ah, yes, this is what it's like spaghetti westerns.
Right,
It's like, ah, yes, this is what America is.
right,
They're like cowboys,
yeah,
cowboys, or like sharks being blown up.
exactly. It's this whole like, let me take the cliches and amp it up to 100
Mm,
because this is what I think American audiences like.
yeah.
So Yeah, it's a mind-boggling film.
It is. It takes so many twists and turns. I jumped on YouTube today because I was like, I wonder what other people have said about this movie. And there was just one guy just going on and on and on. It was like I watched a
Is it
20-minute
me?
video. It might have been you.
Okay.
Yeah. Your secret
Pseudonym? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
secret YouTube channel.
Cool.
But it was just like a 25-minute video of this guy being like, "This is the best shark movie that has ever been made. It's better than Jaws. It's better than 47 meters down. It's just the best shark movie ever made." And like, I kind of agree with him. Like, I just love it.
Through okay, like, completely coincidental, I watched Jaws last night,
Mm,
because, I don't know, like, my mum's been, like, we're showing my mum all these classic movies because she's never seen them.
yeah.
Like,
How did she?
she had no interest in them until I was born.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I showed her Jaws and, she blew her mind, whatever. And then I'm watching Deep Blue Sea today and I'm just like, wow, Rennie Harlan, you are trying for that Jaws mental. Like you were really because I read some trivia afterwards, and Rennie Harlan is on record as saying Jaws had a 25-foot long animatronic.
Yeah.
I wanted a 26-foot long animatronic. And that's what he did. He's
Yeah.
got a 26-foot long animatronic.
That's incredible. And I think the other thing that's kind of funny to me as well is it's one of the earlier, I think, versions of a film that I feel like I see a lot now with sharks, which is like, what if the sharks were indoors? Like that's the we're not in the like it's set underwater, which is why it's Deep Blue Sea, but the whole like drama of the movie is driven by the fact that the sharks are indoors now, and not only that, they can kind of like open doors.
Yeah, it's like this, like they're trying to find their way through this labyrinthine kind of
Yeah.
like situation, but then like they're also nudging the humans to like I guess they're not nudging the humans or anything. Like at the start, they're like, okay, they're trying to kill us, they're after their revenge, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, come to find out that they're just trying to escape.
Yeah, because the sharks yearn for the Deep Blue Sea.
Oh,
That's actually a thing where they're like, "What does an 800-pound mako shark dream about?" And like, what's the
about
actor's
freedom. Oh, Thomas Jane.
Thomas Jane,
Yeah.
that's him.
The Punisher.
Yeah, and he, like, looks into the middle distance and he's like, "The Deep Blue
Deep
Sea,"
Blue
and I was
Sea.
like, "The title of the
Yes, roll credits.
movie!" I have so many things that I, like, want to say about it because it's just from, like, start to finish, just completely insane cinematic decisions. It spends so long setting up the premise of this, like, shark prison,
Yeah.
and they're like,
In the most insane expository dialogue.
"Oh, yeah." They're like, "What do you wanna know about our giant shark prison?" And Samuel L. Jackson is like, "Tell me everything about the giant shark
Yeah,
prison." And then they walk through, and he's like, "Here is the shark pit. This is where we keep the sharks. Now this is what we've been doing with the sharks. It makes them very big."
right.
And, like, that's like a solid sort of 15, 20 minutes of the film.
Seriously, like it's that blonde woman walking him around and being like, "Yes, and that's Carter." Like
Yeah.
he's the
Oh my
ex-convict.
god, I forgot. She literally explains
Yeah,
all of the characters as
yeah, yeah,
well.
yeah,
Like, just in case we weren't getting it
yeah.
from the fact that it's a guy, like, who just got a license plate out of a
Right,
shark's mouth.
right, right. And Stellan Skarsgård's over there pissing into the wind.
Yeah, and they Samuel L. Jackson goes, "He's literally pissing into the wind." And she goes, "Yep." And then we just move on because he's a smart scientist who's pissing into the wind.
Yeah, and like she's looking like beneath like the thing, and she's like beneath this glassy surface, a monster, a world full of gliding monsters or something, and I'm just like, where did you get your dialogue?
Yeah, who talks like that?
Who talks like this?
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, I think was one of the talking points that I sent you, was this weird idea that I had while watching it, which is there's Thomas Jane, who's sort of classically handsome,
Mm,
right? And his opening intro thing is this female scientist sort of walking through and being like, they have a conversation. It's kind of flirty, and this is after he's like done this weird trick where he like gets the license plate out of the shark's mouth, where he's like, Sexy man pretends to be bait in the water, but surprise, he's actually a shark whisperer.
Oh, license plate, also another Jaws reference, right?
Another Jaws
Yeah.
reference, yeah. But he this idea that he was, like, somehow able to commune with the sharks, like, he understood them on a fundamental level, and I thought it was so funny because it's this weird action trope, I think, a lot of the time when there is this, like, monster or the monster is, like, an animal that we're kind of familiar with anyway, which is that the sexy female scientist who's smart and a bit uptight is, like, super drawn to these men who can commune with nature. And I was talking about it with Wes recently as well, and we were thinking about like the Jurassic Park, like Chris, what's his face? Chris, one of the
Chris
Chris's,
Pratt?
Chris Pratt, Chris Pratt in the Jurassic
Jurassic
where
World.
he's like he can
Yeah.
commune with the
And
dinosaurs.
Bryce Dallas Howard is all over it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she's all about it. But
Yeah.
like, even like George of the Jungle,
Yeah.
where he's like,
Oof. It's
he's
a
like,
deep cut. It's been a long
I'm
time.
going hard on
It's a
deep cuts
deep cut.
tonight. I want to think about Brendan Fraser every day for the rest of my
Me
life.
too.
So handsome. But there's like in that he's like communing with horses,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're like there's this it's a kind of a funny play on it where they like cut away and the men are like, women love horses, and it's just like Brendan Fraser shirtless, like communing with the horses, and that's the actual appeal. But like, what do you think it is about these like weird what do you think the sexy bit of that is?
I think it's I mean, like, I think it's a fundamental classic filmmaking trope where it's like we need our male leading character to be wanted and yearned for.
Mm,
So it's kind of like we need for him to establish a connection to the danger, in
yeah.
this case the danger, to establish a connection with the danger, and the female, it doesn't matter whether they're a scientist or not. I'm thinking Godzilla. because because
All roads lead
all
back to
road
Godzilla.
leads to the 98 Roland Emmerich Godzilla. Because, like, in that movie, like, if you remember, Matthew Broderick's character reaches up to the Godzilla, and that Audrey chick
Yeah.
is like, she's all over it. Like,
She loses her mind
she
for it.
loses her mind. So I don't know. I think it's just this like really old school screenwriting trope where, and it's always the male,
Mm,
right? Like, it's always the male who is establishing a connection with the danger,
mm,
and the audience is supposed to have a reaction where they're just like, "Oh my god, he's so brave,
yeah,
he's so talented," and even the woman's realizing that, and the woman is like, I guess the audience is kind of like conduit.
yeah.
Um, it is a weird trope. I get what you're saying though. Like,
It's like the horse whisperer, only like much, much, much stupider.
it's so tired. And in this movie, it's just the scene that you mentioned, like just before, like just it's actually at the birthday party or whatever surprise party.
Yeah,
And it's not fleshed out, this relationship
yeah.
thing. Like, it's like it doesn't go anywhere. Like, it's just kind of like a thread that's just like, oh yeah, we'll abandon that. Like, don't worry about it. So I'm just like,
I think the reason that it is abandoned, though, I'm spoiling the whole film. If you haven't seen this film, it's been out since 1999, so like, get your act together. But like, there's this bit where she sacrifices herself at the end. So
right,
actually, the only two people that survive in this weird twist of kind of that's quite uncommon, I think, for American filmmaking and like American horror filmmaking, is that at the end of it, the only two people that survive are Thomas Jane, the shark whisperer,
yeah,
and LL Cool J.
yeah.
And so I think they could never fully flesh out that relationship because she dies at the end.
Well, I read that there was the original ending originally had the actress's name is Saffron Burrows.
Yeah.
Like,
She's like a classic 90s stalwart.
oh,
She's in
right,
everything.
exactly. I forgot the character's name. Susan, right? Yeah, whatever.
Dr. Sexy.
Not important. No, not important. So Susan was initially supposed to survive, like,
Oh.
through the end, but then test audiences were like, "Well, I don't know, because she's technically the villain of this. She's the
Yeah.
one who kind of hid this secret and like it didn't tell anyone about this whole kind of like genetic splicing, whatever the hell they're doing, making the sharks smarter. So, while you were reading the description of this, this is just I'm like thinking, man, this movie's insane. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's bonkers. It's
right,
accidentally making genius sharks. But yeah, she's kind of irredeemable,
yeah,
right? Like
she's exactly. So
her hubris is the thing that made the sharks
right. So
geniuses.
I imagine that like if they kept that original ending, then maybe they might have fleshed out that relationship a bit more.
Yeah.
By the way, the relationship that I'm totally not interested in at all. Like I didn't feel
Oh,
any chemistry. I'm
oh
sorry.
no.
I just like
Not even a little bit.
Saffron Burrows tells you her personal story about her
Oh yeah,
father
she's
has Alzheimer's, right?
yeah. But it's not a redeeming feature at all. She tells you this like personal story, and you get to the end of the film, and you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
jump into the shark's mouth. I fucking hate you. Like,
I don't care if you're bait.
I don't care if you're bait. Make yourself bait. He's like, no, don't be bait. And she's like,
Ugh,
no, I'm gonna be bait.
God.
I wa- I was also I thought it was one of the things that I thought was so delightfully over the top about this is this idea that like playing God with nature is absolutely just not something we can do. And I thought it was so funny because Samuel L. Jackson's like whole lead in, like the pharmaceutical company that he works for is called Chimera Pharmaceuticals.
Oh my
And
god.
it's like, oh, really? Gene splicing? You think it's bad?
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But I was kind of thinking about that in relation to like monster movies
Mm.
generally. And I've noticed this kind of trend, and I saw it when we were talking about like Jurassic World and things like that as
Well, I was
well.
just thinking Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Yeah. But like I think the most recent Jurassic World as well, where it's sort of thinking about how bad it is to meddle with nature, but also the fact that meddling with nature doesn't necessarily mean that we win. Like
Mm.
it's sort of this what's the point I'm trying to make here?
I think I know. If I can
Yeah,
jump in,
please.
uh, I don't necessarily think it's nature. I think it's more about creation.
Mm.
Like we just talked about Ex Machina on the podcast, and if you've seen Ex Machina, I don't want to spoil it. It is an amazing movie. You should
Yeah.
watch it. It's
We won't spoil that one. It hasn't been out for
incredible.
that long.
Right, exactly. It's been out for 5 years, actually, 6 years.
No
I know.
time.
We were at the cinema.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not that long ago.
Yeah.
It is. It's been a while.
But a big point of that movie is, a guy creates an AI, an artificial intelligence, and the whole conceit of that movie is just how us playing God, humanity playing God, is just not in the cards.
Mm.
It'll come back and bite us in the ass. Um, I feel like that might be what this movie is trying to get at as well.
I think there's a fear of technology that's in it.
Mm,
Like I think that's inherent to a lot of these things is this idea that technology is moving so fast and so uncontrollably that it has inevitably bad consequences. But I think there's something weirder about I want to say they're almost like climate changey movies, and I don't know if it's so much this one, but I know that this movie has two sequels. So have you seen either of them?
No, I have not, but I saw. Okay, so when I was looking it up on YouTube, it was like Deep Blue Sea 2, Deep Blue Sea 3. I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah, it's a whole franchise. But I was thinking about this kind of like there's this kind of climate changey element to it. And I think it's maybe not as prevalent in Deep Blue Sea, but I was watching the trailers. I didn't pay to watch them. I don't feel like I needed to. But there was this really heavy element of like humans interfering with nature as having somehow like broader climatic consequences rather than like just being this kind of like, oh, we shouldn't fool around with this. It's like, no, we already are fooling around
Mm,
with it, and that's
yeah,
bad.
yeah.
And I was kind of thinking about it in this sort of really interesting way where like 1999 is probably not the peak time to be making like a climate change movie.
Yeah.
But then if you're rolling on from that and we end up with things like, The Day After Tomorrow and
Yeah.
2012 even.
Rolling. When did An Inconvenient Truth come out?
Was not long after Al Gore's presidential run.
Yeah.
I think that's the first of the climate change
Yeah.
docos, but
Right.
just as like a theme, I guess, in like a predictive sort of science fiction-y
Yeah.
kind of thing, I thought it was so interesting that we're not only scared of interfering with nature, but we're scared by how much we've already interfered with nature. Like we don't think we can come back from it. You know,
That's heavy.
we're getting
That's
we're getting
no,
deep,
that's
baby. We're
heavy. No,
getting
I
deep.
like that. I mean that's not something I gleaned from Deep Blue Sea, but no, like that's a scary thought.
Yeah,
Um, and it's something that I've seen mostly in later, sort of like more recent films
yeah,
and more recent TV, because like again, we're living in this age of activism and like protests, and it's social media is obviously making that a bit more, uh, I guess, a bit more prevalent. So it's everywhere.
yeah,
And Greta Thunberg and
yeah.
all that stuff. So I mean, like I've seen this in shows like Westworld,
Mm,
even like things that you don't like, media that you don't expect to be bringing up this topic
mm,
is bringing it up in very subtle ways, and it's kind of interesting the way that directors and writers are able to kind of like subtly insert this whole
mm.
notion. I can't really think of anything else offhand, but yeah, that's a really good point.
Gone fully sideways on
No, no, yeah,
it.
you just actually just scared the shit out of me.
Okay, so LL Cool J. I want to talk about him. I want to talk about the weird way that his character is treated in this film because it is so bizarre.
He's
He's a
got
pirate chef of
yeah,
some description. He's got a parrot.
the parrot's name is Bird.
Yeah,
Like he
beautiful.
never names it. It's
Mwah.
Bird. Uh,
Chef's kiss.
his name is Preacher. Like
Yeah.
I don't know why he's super religious. He stabs a shark that he moments before called the devilfish or something like that, demon fish, something like that, and he stabs it in the eye with a crucifix.
Yeah. It's like I want to talk about LL Cool J and religion in this because it's so wild to me.
So wild.
But like to give the audience a little setup of LL Cool J in this film. We get the full introduction for the scientists, and then for whatever reason, having looked at the sharks, we cut away to the kitchen where LL Cool J is feeding a parrot whipped cream. And the parrot is going, "You have a big butt," over and over again. And that's the intro, right? And then we see him kind of come out and he interacts with everyone very briefly when they're having the birthday party. But other than that, he's not in with the rest of the crowd. He's not in with the cool kids. He's not like even particularly framed as a main
Just
character.
weirdly adjacent.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And then the shark pen blows up in a series of unfortunate events, and maybe I think a death scene that I will haunt my dreams forever in terms of ways I don't want to go out.
Stellan Skarsgård's one,
Yeah,
like where
we
he's
got a
just
Skarsgård in there, and he dies horribly. He loses an arm, first of all.
in a really like for an M-rated PG-13 movie in a really gory way.
Yeah, he lights up a cigarette, and then the shark wakes up and takes off his whole arm. And we all freak out. We're like, oh no, he's a goner. But they get him to the surface. They get him on a helicopter, even though there's a hurricane happening for whatever reason. A hurricane that is weirdly never brought up again. It's just like, oh no, a hurricane.
Oh no, it's okay because it was foreshadowed because Janice Soprano told us up
Yeah.
in the goddamn tower.
Yeah, she saw it coming. She was like, guys, hurricane.
Yeah.
And we were all like, all right, get underground. And then he comes up, he's strapped to a bed, the helicopter goes to fly away, and then for whatever reason, the winch breaks and he is dragged into the water where he is gotten a hold of by the genius shark, who then grabs his body, still in the thing, and rams it into the lab,
Fires it like a missile.
fires it like a missile, which also causes the helicopter to crash into the shark lab.
Huge explosion.
Huge explosion. One of my notes, my handwritten notes, in all capitals, why is the shark prison so flammable?
What do you keep there? why, why do you store
Why are you storing all
petroleum?
all of your fuel right where the helicopter can blow up into it?
I just realized something, and probably totally unrelated, and probably doesn't really work. But remember Saffron Burrows' character? No, uh, yeah, when they're flying Samuel L. Jackson into the chopper, they look at the station and they're like, "This was used as a refueling station for the submarines
Oh,
in World
of
War II."
course.
That
That's why
just
it's
occurred to
so
me.
flammable.
That just occurred to me.
God damn.
This movie is impenetrable.
Impenetrable. Not a single fucking plot hole. Take that, cinema sins. Anyway,
That scene where he gets fired on into the glass. Did you know? Real fun fact. Well, not very fun. They actually accidentally dropped 3 tons of water onto the cast,
I did know this. Yeah.
and they nearly killed him
They nearly killed them, and also they kept the footage. So the bit where the
running
like,
up the stairs.
yeah, and it just they get hit by
Yeah,
and everyone gets knocked down. Yeah,
real.
real. They almost killed 4 people.
They almost killed the national treasure that is Samuel L. Jackson. Can
Incredible.
you imagine if Samuel L. Jackson, the star of Pulp Fiction, right, one of the greatest living actors of all time, died for Deep Blue Sea?
What a fitting ending.
God,
He made Snakes on a Plane, I
he
feel like
did.
he's got to go out in a B
He did. He
movie
did.
accident.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, back to LL Cool J. The the shark prison, it blows up. It's very flammable, it explodes. Everyone else, so all the science people are trapped on the bottom. And they don't really know that the top has exploded. They're not sure what's gone wrong, right? Keeping that in mind, where they're like, well, we don't know what's gone on, but something's gone on and we can't get back to the surface. Keeping that in mind, they're like, well, never mind. And they just leave LL Cool J in a flooding kitchen
To fend for himself.
to fend for himself, where he then goes and tries to find his bird. He's like walking around in waist deep water, being like, bird, please, please come back, bird. Bird, no. And you can hear the bird in like the distance being like, fuck you.
Yeah, he calls him a dickhead.
Yeah.
Like, and he starts drinking too.
He starts drinking and like clutching his crucifix. And then he's stalked by a shark. And I was like, surely to God, they can't kill off LL Cool J this early in the film.
Nope.
No, they don't. He gets trapped in an oven where the shark accidentally turns the oven on.
Turns the knob.
Yeah, it turns the knob because it's a genius shark.
Yeah, it's smart.
Yeah. And it's already eaten his bird, so he's pissed and he's like, I don't want to die in an oven.
Shark is very familiar with Fisher and Paykel's oven line.
It's the Fisher and Paykel.
Fisher, nice, nice. Punny.
And he axes his way out of he like uses his crucifix,
Right.
I think, to stab his way out of the oven.
Yeah.
And then he blows the shark up.
Hmm.
And then he pops.
What's the one-liner again?
Oh, I don't even know.
He delivers a one-liner.
He delivers some zinger as he explodes a shark. And then he just finds all of the science people who, in the meantime, have completely forgotten he exists and are not planning on checking. But he just finds all the scientists and he's like, all right, I'm LL Cool J. Who's ready to get the fuck out of here? Like, what kind of bizarre treatment of the person who is the main character, apparently. We didn't know, but he apparently is. What kind of weird treatment are we giving him here?
It's so bizarre. It's okay, because look, if we look at this from a horror movie, right? A 90s horror movie, probably written 97, 98, blah, whatever. Isn't it? It's a trope for the black guy to die, right? Yeah. And a black guy does die in this.
It's true.
In a spectacular fashion.
The best way possible.
Right. And it's like, I don't know what they were trying to do. Maybe they're trying to subvert expectations kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like there is a little bit of like clever misdirection in this. Because they have Samuel L. Jackson and LL Cool J, the two black men in this film.
And Sam Jackson is kind of set up to be the lead. He's at this point he's done Pulp Fiction. Thomas Jane, yeah, he's okay, but I mean, like,
he's just kind of a man.
Right, exactly. So when you have Samuel L. Jackson, you're not expecting him to get killed halfway through in that fashion. So, like, I mean, like, LL Cool J, this was also his kind of like heyday as well, right? Like, a couple years later, he was in SWAT, I think. Like, And let's not forget that he did the amazing song for this movie. Um,
What a banger.
it's on repeat. Um, I'm listening to it on the way home. Um, but yeah, I don't really have no idea what they were trying to do, and like how bizarrely written his character is. Like he kind of goes on this weirdly religious journey.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I have no idea.
It's such a I feel like it is kind of funny, because I feel like around that time you get things like Scream, which is like super meta horror,
Mm,
and I feel like there is this kind of attempt to be a little bit more meta, I guess, is
mm.
the vibe that I get from it, where like Samuel L. Jackson and LL Cool J have this moment where they kind of exchange words,
Oh my
and
god.
he's like, I don't know, he says something about Samuel L. Jackson hanging out with white people or something, and like that'll get you killed or something like that.
He's
And
like
Samuel,
brothers don't climb mountains or something. Oh, like don't brothers have enough ways to get killed? Or something like
yeah,
that. Something of that to that effect.
yes, because Samuel L. Jackson, as we learn at the beginning, is responsible for saving several people from some sort of mountain disaster,
Yes, an avalanche.
an
Yeah,
avalanche. Yeah, and so they have this weird moment where they're like, he's like, why would you go up a mountain? And Samuel L. Jackson's like, why would you come to a shark tank? And then they sort of part ways. They
good point.
never they never, I mean, a zinger.
Yeah,
They never interact again. Uh, but then LL Cool J is stuck on his one man pseudo religious journey to liberate himself from a shark prison. And then we get Samuel L. Jackson, who is down in
the
the
trenches.
the trenches, and he goes to make this speech.
Oh,
Do
this
you want to
speech.
describe the death scene?
Oh,
Because
I
I
would be honored. I would be
please.
honored. So, Michael Rappaport's character is fighting with this blonde woman. I forgot her name. She's not that
Not
important.
important.
Not that important. Oh, she is like Stellan Skarsgård's like girlfriend or whatever because
Yeah,
they hook
she's
up.
very sad
Yeah,
because he's lost
she's
his arm and she's watched him be used as a battering ram by a
right.
shark.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Naturally.
she's had a hard day.
She has had a hard day. She's always crying in this movie. So Michael Rappaport in this movie is also great, by the way. And like, he's like, "Hey, I don't work for you."
Yeah.
Like, so they're arguing, and Samuel L. Jackson is standing in his wetsuit by this submarine, kind of like submersible thing by a pool, and he walks out and he's like, "Hey, hey!" Like in his booming voice that he does, and then he does his speech where he talks about his avalanche disaster situation, and he says, "You." This is one of my favorite lines because it makes no goddamn sense. He says, "You think water's fast? You should see ice," which makes no
I
sense
think I wrote that down
because
and
ice
was
is
like,
frozen water.
I was like, yep, okay. Yeah, no, I wrote it down here. I was like, ice? Question mark?
He says it moves like it's got a mind of its own. Ice
Unlike water.
ice is frozen water. It literally cannot be slower. So, but basically, the moral of his story is like, we're not going to fight anymore,
Yeah.
which is literally his final line. Because as he says, so we're not going to fight anymore. We're going to pull together to get out of here. And then, boom, it's a mid shot, kind of like a little bit more of a close up on his face, just yelling at the camera down the barrel, and a CG shark jumps out of the water pool behind him, grabs him by the the torso, and pulls him in.
Yeah. And it's the peak of comedy.
It is
It's so funny.
hilarious. It's such bad CGI to start. Like, where do
Oh,
you begin, right? Like, the CG is terrible. The surprise moment is absolutely fantastic because when I watched this when I was like 10, I loved it. Like, I was like, I was like, oh my God, I was not expecting that.
Samuel, no.
No, Sam Jackson, god damn it, I saw you in Jurassic Park just now. Um, but yeah, like it was just such a weirdly comedic moment that just came out of nowhere and didn't really serve anything.
Yeah, no, it didn't serve anything. It was, and for a film that has like no, like that is like high, oh, so good, like peak comedy, right?
Perfect, perfect.
This film has no other real moments that are like genuinely funny.
Right.
It tries, There's a bit where they're like, so the blonde woman having cried herself to death, dies. I think her last words are, "I don't want to die," and then she's eaten by a shark.
She literally says, "Carter, I don't want to die,"
Yeah,
as she's getting bit like in the vagina kind of
yeah,
area. Yeah,
just chomped.
yeah.
And then after she's like her vagina is mauled to death by a shark, they go into her room to like retrieve something. I don't know. I think they're looking for batteries.
It's called a MacGuffin. That's what we call it in the movie industry. We need to kill time, so we gotta make the characters get something.
Yeah, they gotta go and find a thing. And so they go to get batteries to build something, but they go into her room, and the guy who's supposed to be the comedic relief character is like, "Well, chicks dig vibrators, right?"
Oh,
And then they're just rummaging through their dead friend's room, trying to find her vibrator that they assume that she owns. Like, it's so weird to me that this script, which has no other real moments of like genuine comedy, just fucking nailed it. Like,
high
high art,
high art,
which is wild.
which is wild.
Mwah,
You know what
mwah.
else is wild? Just very briefly, right after they blow up the shark at the end, right?
Yeah,
By the way, they blow up a shark.
they blow up a shark. That
Uh,
is an important feature. Using dynamite that I think they build from like scraping out like firework or flares,
yes,
flare guns.
yes.
They build a dynamite stick and they're like, we're gonna blow up the shark.
Right. And not seconds later, the boat shows up.
Yeah, they're all fine. Luckily, the boat showed up after they blew the
Yeah,
giant shark up
yeah.
because otherwise, what would have happened?
Okay.
Jaws.
Right, Jaws, exactly. Deep Blue Sea 2. Oh, man,
Oh
looks,
my
looks
god.
like we have a movie to watch now.
Well, Deep Blue Sea 2, I looked up the plot,
Mm.
right? Because I was like, they blew up all the sharks.
Yeah.
And I was like, they couldn't possibly have continued in the same vein
Yeah.
because they blew up all the
There's nowhere
sharks.
to
That was
go.
the
Yeah.
point of the movie. They got rid of them. And then I looked it up and it turns out that it's like another guy
Oh.
is like, what if we weaponized the sharks?
Oh, so it's Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, like this movie's bonkers. I can't like I feel like we've barely scraped the surface. I cannot. I want to sit there next to someone for the first time while they watch this movie and just kind of look at their expressions.
Oh,
Like I
yeah.
do this. I do this all the time whenever I go to the movies with someone and I've seen the movie already because I love watching movies multiple times at the movies.
Oh, yeah.
And like when it's a shocking moment, I just like looking over at their face, like,
What's
"Hey,
going on?
yeah, are you enjoying this?" Or
It's
but
so,
no, man, I adore this movie. Okay, here's something that I didn't mention. I bought this movie today
you bought
for
it?
$12.
Hell yeah.
You know what? This was a movie that was streaming on Stan for so long,
It's not there
and it's
anymore.
not there anymore. And this always happens when we do the podcast. Whenever we cover a movie, like, the movie's been on streaming services for so long, and I was like, yes, I know this is streaming, so I don't have to rent it or anything. And we go to find the movie, and it's not there. So here I am, like, and I don't like. Look, I like renting,
Yeah.
but movies like Deep Blue Sea, I'm gonna buy it because
You
I know
gotta-
I know I'm gonna watch it again. Like,
Yeah,
just
because it's the perfect film.
just lean into it. It's a perfect film. It's a perfect film. But honestly, man, like the first 20 minutes of this is kind of it's the peak of this movie. Like I don't really go for the middle part of it, like where they kind of like swimming through random passageways and
Yeah.
shit like that. Like I'm just like whatever. The first 20 minutes of this, like up until probably Samuel L. Jackson's death, like
Mm.
that, like the whole kind of like shooting into the glass and
Yeah.
yeah, like that has me. Like
Oh,
I'm just like
so good. It's just such peak schlock that I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where I like look at the script and I'm like, how did you get made?
yeah.
What was the pitch?
Well, I mean, there's a really good podcast called How Did This Get Made?
Yeah.
Um, it's hosted by Paul Scheer, who's an actor, his wife June Diane Raphael, and Jason Mantzoukas. Jason Mantzoukas is a hilarious actor. He's in a bunch of stuff. They're all in The League, the show The League. Like they show up in like random, but like they take like really bad movies and they kind of like do live shows of them. So like they sell out theaters and stuff and whatever. They just talk about like really really bad movies. And of course they covered Deep Blue Sea.
I don't know what they're talking about. This is a fantastic movie.
Well, I mean, like they also have the other like, how did this get made? As in, like the movie's so good that it's like, how did this get made?
That's obviously what this
Yeah,
category
yeah,
is. Yeah.
and they've covered like 3 of the Fast and Furious movies and stuff.
Also,
which
the greatest movies ever made.
yeah, also were in contention when you asked me this question, by the way. So we could have been sitting here chatting about all 8 Fast and Furious movies.
We absolutely could have, because I can and will scream about all of the Fast and Furious movies at all times.
Me too.
Forever.
Me too. Me too.
Tokyo Drift is an art house film.
Oh, it totally is. It's the forgotten baby of that franchise.
Forgotten baby for no good reason.
But yeah, Deep Blue Sea.
Deep Blue Sea.
Amazing movie.
What a fucking film.
What a film. What a film. And it's so, again, it's so 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's so unapologetically 90s. Like, that there's no.
I think there's, at one point you actually see like a floppy disk go into a computer, which is
I
pretty
think you
incredible.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that's a 3.5-inch floppy disk. I
Yeah,
know that.
there it goes.
Yeah. And they're like, they're looking at the monitors and they're like, this is top tier technology. And I'm just like,
I think I had that computer in my house.
yeah. It reminds me of Jurassic Park, at the end when they're like, Ellie, get the door locks. And she's like, I know this.
Tappity tap tap
Yeah.
tap tap. I love all hacking films in the 90s. I
Oh
think
my
my contender for like guilty pleasure film would actually be Hackers.
Hackers? Knew it.
Yeah.
You like that Lillard?
I love it. I love
Matthew
that. I love that art house. Like the costuming is just like fucking perfect.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The plot is non-existent.
Yeah.
It's a movie that is all style and zero substance, and
Yeah.
I fucking love it. I think it's great.
Oh, I agree. It's been a while since I've seen Hackers. God damn.
Revisit
I remember it being like a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Like it was the inception of its time.
Yeah. The inception of its time that is primarily just people sitting in a room like, I'm hacking the system, and we're trying to make it tense by just cutting between.
I feel like we get movies like that every few years. Like do you remember Swordfish?
Oh yeah.
Like Swordfish was that too, right?
Yeah. We love to hack the system.
Yeah.
But
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in. Yeah.
I'm in. That's me anytime I remember a password. I'm in.
I'm in.
Delightful. Plug yourself.
Oh, plug myself. That sounds weirdly sexual.
Let's do another take of that isn't weirdly sexual. Hi, Zoheb. You have a podcast. Tell me where we can listen to it.
I do have a podcast. Thank you, Alex. Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me. Like this was a blast. But yeah, the podcast is called Midnight Double Feature. We're on Facebook. We have our main page, which is Midnight Double Feature, and then we have our Facebook group, which is called the After Party. Everyone's invited, as my co-host Colin likes to say. And yeah, like we've built a pretty good community there.
It is, I will say, for a Facebook group, as someone who hates Facebook groups, I've been in it. It's very chill. It's like nice, although it did get a little heated in the recent Jurassic Park versus Jaws poll that we got into.
Yeah.
Oofed.
Yeah, so the After Party is a great page. We're really proud of it. It's 3 words, the After Party. And then we're also on Instagram, which is at Midnight Double Feature, and then Twitter, which is at MDF Pod. Twitter is a bad, toxic wasteland, but we try and kind of keep it light. Twitter's a bad place.
No one likes Twitter.
And yeah, that's it. We've got some, like I said, we've got some good things cooking that we're going to announce soon. So exciting.
So by the time this is out, there will probably be an announcement, in which case you should head over to the Facebook page and check it out, because it'll be there.
Yeah.
Sweet. You want to go to the pub?
Let's go to the pub.
Yay! So the intro to this movie, you don't start off at the shark.
Oh my god, I
prison.
forgot about the intro for this movie.
I want to talk about it because it's crazy. It's teenagers on a boat. They're making out.
It's the Jaws opening, right?
It's the Jaws opening.
Yeah.
Her like foot is trailing in the water,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh no, not the foot in the water. Get your foot out of the water, you silly girl.
Yeah.
And she's like, I hear something, and he's like, I hear something, which makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
It's
It's
not
not
a
a
pickup.
sexual innuendo.
Nope, it's
It's
not a
not.
pickup line.
Nope.
I mean, they're gonna touch ears? I don't know. And then the next line of dialogue is them getting up and like walking towards the other couple who are on the boat, and he goes, "Hey man, it's a party!" Because film is not a visual medium, and we
Teenagers.
have to tell them what's happening.
Yeah, it's a party.
Yeah.